Are you stuck in an endless content creation loop to attract an audience for your online business? Give me 10 minutes and I will share with you 4 ways that you can repurpose your existing content to reach a virtually infinite audience. I'll explain how I create content once. In my case, it's in the form of emails, and how you can reuse that content to just show up everywhere and reach people that you wouldn't be able to reach with just email alone. This is episode 7 of the Ease Into Marketing podcast.
If you want to build a sustainable business without compromising your values or your work-life balance, then come join me and my guests as we share insights and actionable advice that we've learned along the way as we build our business. This is the Ease Into Marketing podcast. Grab your drink of choice, cozy up, and let's get started.
Okay, let's get into it. The first method is to write your emails. Now, I just want to note that if you are not a writing thinker, so if when you think up of the things that you're good at doing and your expertise, if you are not really great at coming up with that by writing, you don't have to start with your emails first. You can also start with speaking, whatever that expertise is. The speaking can be in the form of a podcast or a video podcast that you're recording yourself on video, as I am in this case. If you're watching this or if you're listening to this on a podcast, please know that I also have a video version of it. So I both have video and audio for this episode. And this is really important to what I'll talk about later. So that is the first step, is to have your core content. And it really works well if you either have core content as a list of emails that you sent to your email list, your list of subscribers, or a video podcast. It doesn't really matter which one you start with first. I start with emails first because my brain works that way. I come up with my best ideas when I'm writing things down, not when I'm speaking out loud. And if you're listening to this, it probably makes sense because you can probably tell that I am able to write much more succinctly than when I speak. So that is the first step. Once you have that core content, either your emails or your video podcast, you're then going to go into the second step, which is to transcribe that into a blog. Now, the way that this works is if you are starting with emails first, what you can do is gather a list of some emails that you already have or that you've created in the past several weeks and find some that have some really common themes. Which one of them would fit together to create a really nice video podcast topic? Now you take them, you just string them together to create a pretty good script. Or if you're doing podcast first, what you do is you do your video podcast, you record it, whether you're doing video or not. And I really advise you do video, and that will be made clear in the next few steps. But you take the transcript of that video podcast. You can use free online transcription tools and then repurpose that content into emails that you send to your list. Usually, unless you have like super short podcast episodes that are like 2 to 3 minutes each, you'll be able to create several emails from one single podcast. Unless you have a very, very linear specific topic that wouldn't make sense to break apart. It really depends on what you're covering inside of your video podcast. So whichever method you're using, at the end, you're going to end up with a few emails and a video podcast episode that has a transcript. Using this transcript, you can then flesh it out, spruce it up a little bit, add some headers in there, and add any detail that slipped out of your mind while you were recording. And using that, you can create a blog post. Now, blog posts are really valuable because people who don't really like to watch videos or listen to podcasts and who aren't on your email list, well, what do? They're usually going to be reading blog posts. And I know some people will say like nobody reads blog posts anymore. Well, I still help a lot of businesses with their blogging strategy and blog writing. And let me tell you, they get a lot of traffic from their blogs. So that's not really why I want to talk to you today, but you shouldn't discount blogging as part of your audience building strategy, especially if you already have content that could be repurposed as a blog. So you can pull those tidbits using what you already have and turn that into a really cool blog post. Now, the third thing that you're going to do to repurpose your content, at this point, no matter which method you've chosen, you have a blog post, you have a video podcast, and you have emails. Now, you can use a tool called OneStream, which has a free trial. And I'm not an affiliate or anything, but I just really like this tool. You can use that to take the long version of your content, so your video podcasts, and go live on all the platforms that you have a presence on. So for example, if you have a YouTube, a LinkedIn account, a Facebook personal profile, a Facebook business profile, Instagram, anything that will let you go live, you can go live. But you don't really have to go live for real. You can take pre-recorded content, you upload it to OneStream, and then you choose at what time you want the content to go live, and it will seem as if you're live, and then essentially allows you to publish everything at once on several different platforms. And it's really great to get an audience in several different places at once without having to really do a lot of extra work. It can take as little as just 5 minutes to set up one video podcast episode inside of OneStream. So I really love using that because ever since I've been using it, I've been getting views on my content and people commenting and stuff without really having to do any extra work or spend any extra money on ads. I'm just spending the same that I'm usually spending, and I'm getting that extra boost of audience. Now, the fourth final step, and this is one of my favorites, you take that long piece of content that you've gone live with, and you can find the best highlights in that content. So what are some parts that are really valuable for your audience that could really create an aha moment for your audience? Cut those up into short 1-minute highlights, and then you can reuse those highlights on any platform that has like Reels, Shorts, or anything like that. So TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, or anything, like if there's ever any other platforms that come up with the equivalent of Reels, you can reuse these on there. You can even post these to your Instagram feed if you'd like, instead of just the Reels, and you can use those in your stories. So Instagram stories, Facebook stories, the platform doesn't really matter. What matters is that you are expanding your audience to new platforms. So the number of reels that you can create from one video podcast episode really varies on what type of content you have and how much, how many like aha moments that you've created while you were creating this content. It really, really depends. And now I often get asked, like, can you create clips that are longer than 1 minute? You can, it's possible, but not all platforms will allow you to create longer reels. For example, TikTok, I believe now you can post videos that are up to 10 minutes long. That's really long for a platform like TikTok, and you can definitely do that. However, the goal of these really small highlights is to get people's attention really quickly and give them a really quick win. So I hope that makes sense. Let's recap every method. So first, you are going to create your core content. That can be in the shape of emails, or you can even start with a blog post if you like writing long form content first. You're then going to repurpose that into a series of emails, a blog post, and a video podcast. Using that video podcast, we're going to go live on every platform on which you have a profile. You don't necessarily have to have an audience yet. The key here is that we're going to build your audience. And finally, you're going to take that content and cut it up into little bits and pieces and highlights and post those on your other social media profiles. Now, of course, this may sound like a lot of work up front, but it is a fraction of the work that it would actually require if you were to create all that amount of content from scratch every single time. Another thing that's great with this is that as your business scale, as you start getting more sales, getting more clients, and you start having less time to do all of these tasks, you can take the forefront and do your core piece of content, and then have someone do the rest for you. So you can have a video editor cut up those highlights. You can have a virtual assistant post everything on your social medias, upload your emails in your email marketing tool, etc. And then if you have even more time to dedicate to that content, then you can start optimizing for each platform. So for instance, on TikTok, the big thing is really trends on TikTok. So you can see what's trending and adapt your content to what's currently trending. However, that is not a must. Right now, your goal, if you don't have an audience yet, is to leverage several platforms using your existing content, okay? And now, if you are struggling with what those initial pieces of content should be, whether that's your emails or your video podcasts, I have got you. So I have created a 30-day cheat sheet with the exact templates and content prompts that I give my private clients. And if you're listening to this as a podcast episode, you'll find the link to my messenger inside of the show notes. So just hit me up on there and I'll give it to you. I'll give you the cheat sheet at no charge, no email opt-in or phone number required, anything like that. And if you're watching this on social or on YouTube, all you have to do is comment below and I'll reach out to you personally. So I'll see you next week.